Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Welcome back to Soul Archaeology. I hope you're all feeling more rooted and grounded, regulated after that quite intense week of recovering from the Jupiter-Saturn square, the Mars-Uranus square, then towards the end of the week, Jupiter squaring Neptune. I'm really quite floored at the speed of energy this summer. And we knew this. We knew that the first of the year would be sort of slow and muddy and confusing, foggy, very retrograde-y. And we knew once we hit that point of both Saturn and Neptune entering Aries, Mars officially leaving its shadow, the pace would rapidly increase. We'd hit the ground running, and that is what's happening. We are in this portal of cardinal energy right now with Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries. We're in Cancer season this week. We have a new moon in Cancer. We have interaction between the sun, the moon, Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune, all putting pressure on one another to create some sort of change, some sort of alchemy, some sort of shift within ourselves. And we're going to go deep into the energy of this week because it is potent and pushy and powerful and revealing, illuminating. But first, I do want to mention that my course, Inner Compass, is available now. And this is something I have been working on for years, really 8 years since I began this work. When I first began really working with and applying astrology to my life, I was lucky enough to be introduced to the lunar nodes. And this is something that evolutionary astrology really focuses on and emphasizes because it tracks our karmic story through this lifetime. And it reveals where we've been and where we're headed in this life. I always say that the South Node is like our subconscious. It's shaped and formed by our lived experiences from this life, from childhood, from ancestry, from past lives. So it carries this imprint that we tend to default to. It can carry a lot of shadow as well, maybe the things we're here to release. And the North Node is this point that guides us. It's sort of our evolutionary North Star. And when we learn how to really work with these placements, it can be life-altering. I work with these with my clients. I work with these in my personal life. I work with these in my relationships. I work with my North and South Node daily personally. So this course goes deep into these placements. It goes through each and every North and South Node placement. So you can use it for yourself. You can use it for your clients if you're a space holder or a practitioner. You can use it for your own personal relationships. And it gives very in-depth, actionable ways to work with these placements in your own life, how to understand your own personal nodal story, and gain so much clarity around where you've been and where you're headed in this lifetime. The patterns you're releasing, the purpose you're here to really click into and embrace. This is a self-led course. You can take as long as you'd like to move through it. You have lifetime access to it. There are over 25 modules. There's a very in-depth workbook that comes along with it. There's a meditation. So this is a really powerful tool to utilize, especially now when there's so much happening in the world. I love using the North and South Node to really understand where I'm out of alignment. So I'm going to link this course in the show notes. There's also a link to a free evolutionary archetype guide as well. so you can learn what your evolutionary archetype is. If you've taken this course, let me know. I'd love to hear how it's landed for you. So this week, we start off the week on the 22nd with the sun in Cancer, newly in Cancer, squaring right off the bat Saturn and Aries. And I've talked about how any planet or luminary or celestial body that enters a cardinal sign will immediately begin to form a pressure aspect with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Saturn and Neptune are sort of these gatekeepers at the early stages of Aries. They're checking us. They're asking us where we are maybe needing more structure, needing less structure, if we're actually truly rooted in reality, where we're holding illusion, where we need boundaries, where we're holding impatience. Saturn is a serious gatekeeper, and it's really setting the tone for the next 2.5 years. But we start off on the 22nd with the sun squaring Saturn, and then the next day, the sun in Cancer is squaring Neptune in Aries, because Saturn is at 1 degree of Aries, Neptune's at 2 degrees of Aries. So like I said, whatever luminary, planet, celestial body enters a cardinal sign, it will first hit Saturn and then it will hit Neptune. On Tuesday, June 24th, Mercury in Cancer squares Chiron in Aries. Mercury's getting ready to shift out of Cancer this week. So at the end, we have, of course, Chiron as a checkpoint at the end of Aries. That same day, we have the Jupiter Cazimi, the sun in Cancer conjunct Jupiter in Cancer. And just like we have these gatekeepers in Aries, in Cancer, we have Jupiter at the early degrees. And this is expansive. This is big. Jupiter is much different energy than Saturn and Neptune. And it's very grounding and orienting in Cancer. So we have the Jupiter Cazimi on June 24th. And then on the 25th, we have the new moon in Cancer. After that, we have Mercury entering Leo as we build towards our Mercury retrograde later in July. And then we have some harmonious Jupiter and Leo trining Saturn and Neptune in Aries on the 27th and the 28th. So there's sort of this rounding out of the energy towards the end of the week, but it gets a little pushy at the beginning. We have this beautiful grounding new moon in Cancer midweek, and then we have this trine energy towards the end of the week. But this week is deep. Even the new moon in Cancer, I mean, that's such a deep new moon anyway, but it's also squaring Neptune and Saturn in Aries as well. So there's a potency with this new moon. It's also conjunct Jupiter, so everything's going to be bigger and louder and more deep. It basically emphasizes the energy of the new moon. And we are in Cancer season. So we're in the 4th house. We're navigating themes around safety, nourishment, belonging, emotional security, home, protection, boundaries, movement. When I think of Cancer, I think of the mother, the shell. It's where we're held. It's where we belong. It's where we meet ourselves in a deeper way. And with Jupiter now in Cancer, we're going to be doing a lot of depth work around this sign, around safety, around belonging, around how we root into self, how we allow our deepened sense of internal safety uncoil and expand who we are and our sense of self. So with the sun and Neptune, both in Cancer at the early degrees, of course, immediately meeting with Saturn, creating this sort of contraction. Are we safe enough to deepen, to soften, to open our hearts? And then immediately squaring Neptune. How do we actually soften and open our hearts with boundaries? Not falling into the spiraling, but into presence, allowing yourself to actually be with your emotions so that they don't hijack you, but that they can teach you, they can guide you. Befriending our emotional landscape so that it doesn't become something that needs to be numbed, So the 22nd and the 23rd, we're going to be navigating these themes. Is it safe to open? Is it safe to soften? How do I protect and boundary my heart, opening with a strong, straight spine? And there's a tenderness around this because Mercury at the late degrees of Cancer will also be squaring Chiron and Aries. So the beginning of the week could hold some communication mishaps, some fears around sharing. It could be a portal to really access your vulnerability in a deeper way. And then we move into this point of clarity on June 24th as the sun joins Jupiter in Cancer. And this is called Cazimi, when a planet enters the realm of the sun, when there's a meeting of these two energies. This is a point of clarity and insight, where the sun fully illuminates the heart of this planetary placement. And this is such a fertile time. A seed is planted in the great cosmic womb just before the new moon in Cancer, the next day on the 25th. For we are in the cosmic womb. Cancer is the sign of the mother. It's the sign of the moon. It's the dark void, the womb space. And this Cazimi is a light in the womb. It's a flash of insight, clarity, luck, abundance, opportunity, where we can so clearly see the imprints held within our womb. When a Cazimi happens, the sun purifies and blesses the planet. It's a time of rebirth and clarity, revelation. Jupiter is all about expansion and abundance, growth, spirituality, truth, purpose. In Cancer, it's about expanding our emotional capacity, our ability to be with our internal landscape, our ability to be held within our own womb. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. I highly recommend going back to my Jupiter in Cancer episode. That one holds so much insight and information on this 12-month transit. And this point where Jupiter meets the sun, this Cazimi point, is a really important point along this 12-month journey. Your path is illuminated. There are new keys to expansion that emerge, and Jupiter can access its natural wisdom in Cancer. But it's not through intellectual logic or understanding, but it's through emotional intelligence. We grow by remembering that our abundance comes through belonging, connection, nurturance, inner alignment. Abundance comes from tending to our inner garden, our inner home, our sense of safety within self. It comes when we create conditions internally to allow the seeds that we plant to actually grow, to be supported by beliefs of opportunity and luck, prosperity, positivity. Over the next 12 months with Jupiter in Cancer, we are growing and evolving from the inside out. We'll be tending to our inner gardens. We'll be tending to our ancestral imprints, what we carry, the shadow and the light. This is where we learn how to really reparent and restore the natural wisdom of our inner parts, where we heal through belonging, connecting with the web of collective belonging. This is where we get to write new stories. I've said this before. We are the death doulas of an old world and the midwives of a new world. We're both honoring the medicine of our ancestors and writing a new history for our future ancestors. We hold the complexity of this middle space, knowing there's so much that can be carried with us in the form of wisdom and medicine and beauty and love and belonging. but knowing we need to cross through this threshold into a new frontier of life, of living, of belonging, of connection. And we're seeing this play out on the world stage right now. We're seeing this tension between Cancer and Aries, belonging, love and nourishment, safety, home, clashing with this desire for boundaries, for protection, for action, for change, for dominance, for power. We're being pushed and pulled, for those of us in the in-between, for those of us in the middle, for those of us holding this ground. We're being pulled to either side. And as almost always, the answer is found in the gray. The answer is found in the nuance. It's found in the conversations. It's found in our internal spaces and then our external spaces. We as a people get to write a new way. And we're seeing what this Saturn and Neptune conjunction in Aries looks like. Dominance, power, leadership, greed, illusion. We're being forced, quite literally, to look at where we hold illusions around leadership, around safety, around belonging, around trust. I said this in the last episode, but no one is coming to save us. So how do we save ourselves? How do we create a new world separate from the systems that require us to be enslaved and dependent, fearful, biased, disillusioned? This Jupiter Cazimi, if you can take some time to sit with it on the 24th, I think it can show us a new way. If we can all take a moment to just sit and ask for the blueprint of health, belonging, safety, nourishment, when we create those conditions internally through our secure root, through our nervous system, when we get a feeling for belonging internally, we know it has nothing to do with borders or leaders or systems, everything to do with connection. I've had the honor and privilege of sitting in safety within my system. I've had the honor and privilege of studying it very specifically over the last 6 months especially. I've had the honor and privilege of downloading that blueprint of safety into my system. And I can tell you that we all belong to something. It doesn't matter what we call it. It doesn't matter how we identify it. It doesn't matter what label we apply to it. But we all belong to a force that can hold us. And this is the energy of this Jupiter Cazimi and this new moon in Cancer, accessing that web of safety that exists without needing to buy or purchase anything, without needing to give our power away to anything else. It's a felt sense. It's an internal somatic experience. It's a remembering, a retrieval of what is innately ours. And so I invite you to sit in prayer, in meditation, to ask the universe what it would feel like to sit in the blueprint of belonging, of safety, of health. And just notice what comes up for you. The answer is not the same for everyone. But I do believe that the root of all suffering on this planet is separation. Trauma comes from an experience of separation and the isolation that comes from it. Feeling that we are separate from God, source, the earth, nature, its rhythms, one another. And when we can access this inner nourishment, this belongingness internally, these points of rupture begin to repair automatically, just on their own. So this Jupiter Cazimi flowing then into this new moon in Cancer is truly an invitation to rewrite our beliefs, our internal library, narratives and stories around ease, nourishment, expansion. This is an expansion of feminine leadership. What would it be like to resource first and then respond? We're hitting this tension point in this new moon between the sun, the moon, and Jupiter in Cancer, which wants to pause and take a moment to respond from an internal state of safety and belonging and nourishment and resourcing, when Saturn and Neptune in Aries want to respond with action or reaction. It wants to respond from the wound. It wants to respond quickly. It wants to put this pressure on something to change fast and quickly. And this Sun, Moon, and Jupiter conjunction that begins to form on the 25th is asking for us to rewrite this narrative. What would it look like to respond from an emotionally regulated place? One that contains a blueprint for emotional safety. What would it look like to meet the other person in their experience and then respond? What would it look like to be met in your emotional experience during conflict? How do we expand our capacity to be with our own internal experiences so that we can be with others? How do we learn to tend to our own internal landscape so that we have the capacity, the resources, the tools to hold the complexity of this world? On Wednesday, June 25th, we have a new moon in Cancer at 4 degrees. It's at 3:31 a.m. Pacific. And we've been doing this work in Cancer. We had Mars retrograding through Cancer at the end of last year and early this year. We are in some heavy cardinal energy. And Cancer is a sign of the mother, home, belonging, roots, protection, emotional security, the inner child, family, belonging. And it's connected with the 4th house. It's the first water sign, and it's here where we begin to touch and feel and relate to our own emotional experience, our inner landscape, which interestingly enough happens through our mother first. Our mother is our first mirror. It's where we're held. It's where we belong first. It's the first relationship we experience in human form, even if you've never met or interacted with your mother consciously. You've had a relationship with her from the beginning. This is the point, this cardinal water energy, where we begin to understand how our roots and our first relationships, our family of origin, where we come from, really shape and form us. And we're formed from our emotional experiences that imprint into our psyche. Like I said, our mother is our first relationship. It's our first home. And that relationship shapes and forms us more than any other relationship we have. Creates conditions that impact all of our relationships moving forward. And so our work in Cancer is to befriend our internal landscape, befriend our inner home, to understand what's here, why, how can we love it? How can we have compassion for the experiences that have shaped and formed this home? And this new moon is conjunct Jupiter, so everything's bigger. It's felt more, it's expanded, it's more obvious, where it's on the heels of this Jupiter Cazimi we just talked about. We might have new insight, new information. And a new moon is when the sun and moon are conjunct, or they're right next to one another. It's both the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. It's the dark void when everything goes dark. And it's the light that we find in that inner darkness, in that void space, in the cosmic womb where everything is birthed. And this new moon in particular, reminds us that we must tend to this inner home. If we seek belonging, love, connection, safety, security, that all must come from within first. What's more is that it's creating this square to Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So there's much pressure here. There's this tension between nurturance and self-actualization, belonging and individuation, softness and structure. There's so much cardinal energy here, which wants action and change, movement and mobility. And the moon here, amidst all of this energy, reminds us that all things are born from this inner landscape, this cosmic womb, the dark void, the unknown. It reminds us that we must remember where we create from, that all things are a projection from our internal landscape first. This is a deep new moon. Cancer wants to hold, to shelter, to tend, and Saturn and Neptune are agitating the waters. They're asking us to take responsibility for our own growth, to lead ourselves, and to reimagine really what it means to be and feel safe in a changing world. Often Cancer moon can feel passive and deep and almost like a deep well that we can sort of sink into. But this moon might be uncomfortable. It might be asking more of us than just surrender. But this is initiatory energy. We're not meant to just sink into our feelings. We're meant to create from them. We're meant to alchemize them. We're meant to utilize them as life force to transform, to change, to initiate, to learn, to grow, to evolve. This is a reset point. And this is a moon of lineage and memory and the sacred womb space. So maternal lineage, themes around the mother can come forward. Our external mother, the mother we're born with, our internal mother, and the great cosmic mother. I've been seeing so much come up around the mother over the last few weeks in my client work. And this is work that I love to do so much because it's so essential in our process. Like I said, our first relationship is with our mothers in human form. And it's where we learn how to interact, how to connect, how to regulate, self-regulate, co-regulate. Our connection with our mother leaves an imprint that informs every single relationship we have moving forward, not only with others, but with the world, with ourselves. Our nervous systems hold an imprint of our mother. And this is where we rewrite this imprint, this narrative, this story. This is where we get to download a new way of feeling and sensing and belonging. Because even though we might have this beautiful relationship with our mothers, or maybe not, but they are human, and there's almost always a rupture that's seeking repair. I'll have some clients that come to me and say, oh my gosh, my relationship with my mom is so beautiful, and there's nothing there. And then when we start getting into the work, there are these imprints and these patterns and these points of rupture that hold so much opportunity for alchemy and change and transformation. And in this ancestral work, we get to heal not only ourselves, which is beautiful, of course, but that's not why we're doing it. We're not doing it for self-preservation or self-actualization. We're doing it to heal forwards and backwards in time. We get to heal our past ancestors and our future ancestors in this work. When we create new conditions for safety, belonging, home within ourselves, that ripples out throughout space and time, and it activates the potential for others to feel and experience that as well. And this is not just quantum healing. This is somatic healing. This is embodied healing. I'm still trying to find the words to describe this work because my work personally has transformed so much over the last year, even 6 months. But I've had so many clients come to me saying that they've never felt so held. They've never felt so safe. They've never felt so relaxed and surrendered. And it's not me. It's the container. It's this web. It's this sense of belonging that is accessible to each and every one of us. And with Saturn assisting this new moon, it's giving us a little bit of an edge. It's saying we're responsible for this work. If we see things unfolding in the world that we don't like, what are we responsible for? How can we take the reins and enact change within our lives? How can we rewrite our own imprints and our own blueprint to hold more space for healing and belonging and safety internally so that can be shared with the world? This may be a week where you feel a lot surfacing from your inner child, your early timeline. Some things might not even make sense or be accessible through the mind. There could be this deep grief within the heart. How can you let yourself simply be with it, not needing to make sense of it or understand it, but simply being with that grief? What I've found about grief is that it doesn't really want to be understood. It simply wants to be held. And we so often approach it with this sort of lens of understanding or these conditions to control it, because grief is such a alchemical force. It can be so intimidating. It could feel like it can totally rip the rug out from beneath us and tear our hearts open. But it's also such fertile ground. And I've seen wild transformation occur on the other side of grief processing. And this new moon is fertile. And it's fertile because it brings us into these layers. It brings us into our inner garden. What do we need? Do we have this rotting at our roots because grief is suppressed? Anger is suppressed? What are you avoiding? What wants to be tended rather than bypassed? And I'd like to share a quote from Francis Weller, talking about grief and the power of grief. And he says that we're taught how to endure grief, but not how to let it ripen. Nature's not always improving itself. Sometimes it goes through profound periods of decay and destruction, death. Our psyches were shaped in the context of nature over hundreds and thousands of years. So why wouldn't our psyches also be akin to the patterns of nature? We need the darkness. In the absence of that relationship to the darkness, we don't understand our times of descent when we're taken down below the ground. Grief, loss, depression, collapse. We don't know how to relate to it, so we keep scrambling to get to the surface, the light, to where we can see what's going on. But what the psyche, the soul, invites us to do during times of loss like that is to develop a second kind of sight, to learn how to see in the darkness and recognize the holiness in that darkness. And this is this opportunity this week to descend, to see the light within this space. And in the descent work that I do with clients, I almost always hear, I just can't see anything down here. I don't know what's next. I can't see what's before me. And this is part of the process. When we land in that descent, when we land at that underground, subterranean space within us, the light comes on when we truly surrender to it, when we let go, when we allow the grief to process, when we allow the rage to move through us. And all of a sudden we have this fertile ground to work with. We can befriend our shadow spaces, the spaces that have been seeking light for so long, they all of a sudden become fertile. And this is the point of this new moon in Cancer, is to reveal where we have opportunity to expand our garden, to create new space for fertility, for growth, for healing, for expansion within us. The current state of the world is a reflection of this. It's a reflection of our inability to be with our grief, our emotions, our internal experiences, the forces that would like us to be small, contained, obedient, small, predictable, continue to create more and more chaos, more and more pain, more and more rupture. And we're inundated with emergency after emergency across the globe. Our systems are interpreting these experiences as threat. Our nervous systems are acknowledging these threats in real time. And unfortunately, they can't be fixed, really. So we're at a crossroads. Just like a predator coming at us, we can either choose to fight or run or give up and collapse. So each and every time we meet one of these threats, another catastrophe, another school shooting, another bombing, another threat to our rights or our liberty, we have a choice. And this happens almost by default within our nervous systems. And this is by design. The corruption runs so deep. The control runs so deep. So how do we rebel against it? Our systems want to collapse. They want to dissociate. They want to choose that numbing. That's why so many people are using substances and addictions and social media to just tune out. Because quite literally, our systems are saying, we can't fight this. There's no option. Psychologically, physically, psychically, we have the fight, flight, or collapse pathways. And the fight is just a dead end, so people choose collapse. But there's also another option. There is a middle space. There is a pocket of regulation within each one of our systems and our collective nervous system. And this is where freedom is held. This is where liberation is held. This is where safety is held. This is where rebellion is held. They want us to stay in fight or flight or collapse. It is the independent, sovereign being that lives in the present, in this range of regulation, in this pocket of safety. And that doesn't mean we aren't meant to feel the anger, the rage, these hyper states of response, or even some dissociation sometimes. But true sovereignty and liberation comes when we're able to transmute those experiences and return back to our center, back to that pocket of regulation. When we can meet these spaces within ourselves with the tools and resources, we quite literally transform the past and future narratives and stories. This is where we take our power back. When we access the resources and the tools to remain within that pocket of regulation and safety and belonging. And of course, this doesn't happen overnight. There is not a quick fix for this. It is practice that we have to tend to and be with. It's a garden that needs tending. But it all starts by being able to meet our internal experiences, being able to spend time within our internal home. And as Saturn and Aries is teaching us, take responsibility for what's there. And stepping in our now adult sovereign selves to choose to create a new pathway for liberation, sovereignty, safety, belonging, rebellion. That pocket of regulation, that middle space where we stay present with what is without having to collapse, takes a lot of work to access and remain present within. This is the conscious warrior work. This is the Jedi work. This is where we respond from a place of regulation, clarity. When we make choices from this space, we're unstoppable. When we build an army from this space, we are unstoppable. And this is the We Are the People movement. People who can be present with their own internal experiences, who can move from a space of self-awareness, who aren't projecting onto the other, who don't need to other the other side in order to feel safe, who operate from this embodied sense of connection and community and inclusion, who can be with nuance and complexity without collapsing or without avoiding or bypassing or othering. And this is the work of this new moon in Cancer. This is where we get to see the blueprint for a new way. And this is sacred activism as well. So the card that I pulled today from the Untamed Elemental deck for our community, our Soul Archaeology community, is the Sage card. I've pulled this before, and it always comes when we're at this sort of climax or this point of clarity. And it's all about purification. It says she willingly transforms into ember in the name of sacramental cleansing. She's a living ceremony, charged with protection and the unmitigated desire to let go. She burns, clarifying and cleansing her interference and toxic spirits from her surroundings. She purifies all, even herself. Sage is native to high desert ecosystems and perfectly embodies their grounding qualities. With your aligned intentions, she will gladly hasten your positive transitions and clarify your purpose and vision. Sage indicates the timeliness of purification. With your intention to clear cluttered energies from the spaces of your body, mind, emotions, home, and altar, she will, by her ashen, solemn plume, unveil a new blessing. Enlist Sage to accelerate your purification process. Ask her to surge toward your senses with delicate strains of perfumed smoke. The overall clarity and groundedness that this ritual brings will be its own reward. When it's balanced, you feel clear, harmonious, and grounded. When it's imbalanced, you feel depressed, chaotic, or conflicting energies that create confusion. To bring into balance, intentionally clear your physical spaces every day. So, this is going to be a week. There's a lot of opportunity here. There's so much fertile potential held within this week. And there's also some confrontation too with these squares. So I wanted to mention I do have 2 spaces left for private mentorship this summer. I have options for clarity calls over the next few weeks. We begin the week of July 21st. And this is an incredibly potent, deep, powerful container of transformation. This is a container or a vehicle to guide you through an initiation, a portal of change, a rite of passage. This is where we navigate your deepest core layers. This is where we work through your mother's lineage, your father's lineage. This is where we access this cellular remembering of belonging. This is a container to guide women through change and transformation. And it is the most intimate way to work with me. We work closely together over the course of 3 to 6 months and really navigate these core spaces within you. It's focused on the integration of self, so integrating these different parts that keep us in this illusion of separateness. The transformation that I see on the other side of this container is always wild to me. People leave relationships, they begin relationships, they leave work, they begin businesses. It's truly a threshold container. And I'm so, so grateful to walk this path with some incredible women. So if you're interested, you could book a clarity call. I'll link it in the show notes. I have 2 spaces left for July. So thank you, as always, for being here. I'm always so grateful for your presence, for your attunement and emotional intelligence while you're navigating your own path. So I'm so grateful. As always, I am very appreciative of shares on social media with friends and family, reviews. If you're new here, welcome. There's a lot of new people, and I'm so grateful that you're here. And if you have any questions, as always, feel free to email me. Thank you for being. Have a beautiful week.